All right, guys, how's it going? Katie Day down here in Houston, Texas with Stephen Kim for another episode of Real Advice Podcast. I am really excited to welcome this week's guest to the podcast. Steve is as well. She's been in the real estate industry for over 20 years and has spent the majority of her career building a sales team and brokerage in Glendale, Arizona. She joined the team that she's with in 1997 as a buyer's agent, and then in 2002 took a role in managing the team for the next 10 plus years. We have so much to unpack today because not only is she a practitioner, a real estate professional, she's a published author, a local trainer and national trainer and speaker, a master coach for Workman Success Systems, and a certified DISC practitioner, and just an all-around badass. She was my personal business coach for 2 years and helped me and my team immensely in order to create systems in our business and really grow it to where it is today. Please join me in welcoming Sarah Michelle Bliss.
Wow,
that was quite the intro. Thank you, Katie. Who's she talking about?
You're like, I've done those things. So, hey, how's it going?
I'm good. How are you?
Dude, I am well. I'm really excited to dig in.
Thank you.
Because
Thank you for having me.
I love our conversations, and you truly have helped us in our business. So I'm excited to dig in.
Yeah. And likewise, I mean, you were one of my first coaching clients that I had as a workman coach. And when I first met Katie, she was like, "This is what we want to do." I'm like, "All right, let's do it." So, so pretty remarkable too. I mean, what you guys accomplished in 2 years was fantastic. So that's not typical of coaching. Usually coaching takes a couple years to really dig in. So kudos to you guys too. So.
Thank you. I remember
Sarah, let's be real though. She was a pain in the ass at times, wasn't she? There were times where she didn't do her homework and she was nagging and complaining. Let's be real. This is real advice. Come on.
Steve,
I think everyone's like that.
See, something's wrong with your mic. I'm just going to mute you. So yeah, no. But I remember we started coaching in August of 2018. And I met Verl at an event in September, and he was like, "Hey, I heard you signed up for coaching, or I didn't meet him, I saw him." And he's like, "I heard you signed up for coaching. Congratulations. I'm really excited that you join the family and blah, 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 whatever." So we're talking. He's like, "How's it going?" And I'm like, "It's good." And he's like, "Sarah's really tough, right?" And I was like, she's been pretty nice. Like, I don't think she's really tough. And he's like, "Oh, she's one of our toughest coaches." And I'm like, okay, we've only had a few calls, but like, she seems really nice to me. I think that like, I could use some of that. Like I could use her being a little tougher, perhaps, he's like, "Well, just tell her next time you talk to her that like, you need her to turn it up some." And I was like, "Well, what does that mean?" He's like, "Just tell her to turn it up." And I was like, okay, like, sounds good. And I remember coming to you and being like, "Hey, so I saw a Verl and like, whatever." So like, he said to like basically give us some more tough love. And from that point on, you were just like riding us so hard every week. And it was just like every call, I'm just like, God, she just like, it was relentless. And I'm like, okay, like now I see what he's saying. I'm like, she was like easing into it, and I was like, oh yeah, like, let's
break the ice.
Yeah. And then you were just like balls to the wall. And I'm like, oh, this is what he meant. Like, this is now I see what he's saying. So
I do it out of love, Katie. It's out of love. So
love.
But yeah, that was a fond / not so fond memory of him being like, "Oh no, she can definitely, be."
Yeah, but if I hadn't done that, you wouldn't have respected me as your coach. You're a pretty strong personality, and you needed someone who could be a match to that. And that's part of coaching, right? Is finding somebody that will kind of call you out on your stuff, right? And and show up, right? It's part of it. It's part of showing up and being there. You're paying a lot of money for someone to get you to where you want to go with your goals, and it's not going to do you any good to sugarcoat it and to be nice to you.
Yeah.
Sorry, it sounds kind of harsh, but
I can
right in.
I can feel the intensity already, which is amazing. Sarah, share with us, how did you get your start into real estate? Was it something that was kind of bestowed upon you from a previous family member? Like, what was it? Because not everyone starts off being like, you know what, I want to be a real estate agent, at the age of 7. So talk to us about that evolution.
did have a little family history. My mom was an escrow officer while I was in high school, so I got to witness that and worked in her office in the summers. And I would see agents come in. They were either really high because they'd sold a house, or they were really not because something fell apart. And so, witnessing that, and I said to myself at one point, I was like, I never want to do that. That job's terrible, right? It's an emotional roller coaster. I don't ever want to do that. And then fast forward, I was married, and my ex-husband at the time, or my husband at the time, his brother-in-law was a realtor. So he got me a job working part-time at the front desk. And within 6 months, I ended up being the broker's assistant. I was auditing files. I was training agents. I was doing all this. And one day I cut a check for 10 grand for an agent. I was like, I'm on the wrong side of the fence here. So I decided to get my license. I left that brokerage, and I needed a place to go. And, you want me to be transparent? My marriage was not doing well. I was really young. I got married at 17. So I was super young. Now I'm almost 21, and I have this real estate license. I'm like, I don't know what to do with this. So I had actually gone up against Nate, my business partner, on a listing appointment. And here I am, and I got braces. I got huge glasses. Like, I have no clue what I'm doing. I look like I'm 15, right? And I go in this listing appointment, and I see all Nate's stuff spread out on the counter. I'm like, yeah, I'd list my house with him too, right? So then my ex-husband and I get in this giant fight because, I had spent all of our savings getting my real estate license, which, back then, what was it, a couple $100. So I picked up the phone the next day, and I just started calling offices. I was like, I got transaction experience. I can train. I got this license. And that's how I met Nate. I called the brokerage, and the broker at the time was Ed McLeod. And he said, well, Nate's always looking for buyer agents. I'm like, I don't know what that is, but I'm pretty desperate. And so I interviewed with him, and I had, as you probably read in the book, Kate, the story about the red dress. I had this wool dress in Arizona.
In Arizona.
Right? So it was the only thing I had that was like professional, but man, I felt like a rock star when I wore this red dress, right? So I could put my red dress on, I go to the office, and I'm waiting. Like, he's like 30, 45 minutes late, right? And I'm already nervous because this is Nate Martinez. Like, at that time, he's the number one agent in the Valley, right? You see his signs everywhere. Like, he's the man, right? So he shows up, and he puts his feet up on the conference room table. And here I am in my wool dress, right? He puts his feet on the table, and he's like, I just have one question for you. Are you hungry? And at the time, I'm like, okay, I want to get divorced. I don't own a house. The car's in his name too. I have a $3,000 Citibank credit card. Yeah, I'm pretty hungry right now. And so, he didn't want to hire me because, I was green, I was young, but I ended up kicking his best realtor's butt on the team my first year. So I was the first one there, the last one to leave. And, I had just had a drive, right? Nobody, Steve, was going to pay my bills but me, and so that's kind of how I got my start. And then it evolved over time. I just kind of naturally took a leadership role on the team. And then after we opened the brokerage, there was a need for a team manager. And so that's kind of how, it was just a natural progression for me to take that position. So, and I loved it. I still sold. So I was an active agent as well as managing, and, I worked a lot, but I loved it. So it was great. So, and then, just evolving over time.
That's incredible. So in your first year, you essentially like rose to the top of the team. I got to ask, because everyone's going to want to know, what was the one or two things that you did to get you in that position? Like, someone so green, so new, sure, like hungry, absolutely. That is a fundamental component of pushing forward. But tactically, like, what was it? One or two things that really kind of propelled you in that first year to where you got to?
So I was gifted a book called 30 Days to Success, which I also write about this in the book that I just published. And Nate gave that to me, and he basically said, hey, go do everything in this book. And it was his way of pacifying me, right? Because he didn't want to train me. But little did he know that this book changed my life, right?
Yeah.
And literally, when I say I was the first one in the office, I was the first one in the office. I was the last one to leave. Like, I wasn't going to go home. And another thing was, my kid brother lived with me at the time. I shouldn't say kid, we're only 2 years apart, but he lived with me at the time. And every time I'd come home, he would say, did you sell a house today? And so, it would be really sucky on the days I didn't sell a house and I got my butt kicked, right? But on the days I did, and still 25 years later, there's times he'll call me and be like, hey, did you sell a house today? And so it was a layer of accountability that he didn't know. He didn't know he was doing that, right? So I would say the biggest thing that I did, that one was get to work, right? Get to work every day, be there, show up. And number 2 was one of the things I learned in that book was, and this is old school, buy index cards, write down the names, numbers, and addresses of everybody that you know. And so I started sending out these chicken soup for the soul postcards every month. And it was on old, I'm dating myself here, but it was on old Doc Matrix printer. And it was a 4-up postcard. So the stupid thing with jam, and I would curse, and I only had room for like this big of a story, right? And, it's a little tiny postcard and getting all the other stuff. But I consistently did that for years. I would send that postcard out, and it was amazing the response I would get from people, because they would call me and be like, how'd you know this was going on in my life? I'm like, I didn't. That story just fit in my box that I could fit in. It was the consistency of that. So 1 is show up. 2 is get in front of everybody that you know, right? And then be consistent with that. In Phoenix, there's 90,000, or Arizona, there's 90,000 agents running around with a license. Everybody I know knows somebody who's an agent. So sending one holiday card out, during Christmas time is not enough, right? It's not enough. So, you've got to stay top of mind. So that would be, again, hunger, right? But just show up, do the right activities. It's not rocket science.
That's intense, which is amazing. But you said it perfectly. Like, showing up that's half the battle, though, right? Because our minds can be a very scary place, right?
Absolutely.
So breaking through the noise, showing up, I think is tremendous. So walk us through, after the first year, what was the progression next? You're number 1 on his team. Now what? Like, what else do you have to accomplish? Like, walk us through kind of maybe the next few years after that.
You got to maintain number 1, right?
Yeah, exactly. Right. Exactly.
Got to stay there. So that I joined in December of 1997. I became the team manager, I think, it was right after, because we opened our brokerage on 9/11, which was a crazy time too. We're getting ready to celebrate our 20th anniversary, which is super exciting to live through that. So I became the team manager shortly after that. So it was probably early 2002.
Okay.
And then from there, it was managing the team and, still keeping my book of business going, but growing the team. And we went from having traditional markets with, a handful of buyer agents, admin, that kind of thing. Then we went through the crash, right? The boom and the crash, right? The boom was,
right.
I read about this in the book, but when you heard stories, and I don't know how long you've been in the business, but there were stories about people coming in caravans from California buying houses in Arizona. That was kind of what it was like. It was crazy. So, and then of course that all shifted, and we had to shift, right? We had to figure out what we were going to do, or we weren't going to be in business. And so we went after the REO business. And at that point, when the hype of the business the hype of the REO, we sold 679 units. We had 18 people on the team. It was a machine, it was a machine. And I remember Nate and I being in Chicago at a conference, and we're in the bar, go figure. And most wonderful ideas are born in a bar, right? And so we have a cocktail napkin, and we're like, right now, like, okay, this is how many active houses we'd have to have, how many pending. We're going to need field people. And, and of course, at that time, people were stealing copper, stealing air conditionings, gutting houses, right? So there was just so much to it. And, it was a grind, but I'm glad that we did it, because we may not be here today if we hadn't done that. So, so what comes next is just my evolution on the team and being the team leader, and, kind of getting all the troops through those different markets.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's intense.
It was crazy. We used to joke that we needed catheters and diapers. We couldn't leave our desk all day long. No, it's no joke. You'd walk in on a Monday and you have 60 new assignments all over the city. And then you got to go deal with getting people out of the properties, and that sucked, because there were plenty of people who were paying their rent for cash and we couldn't help them. Right. And then all of a sudden you got to be out. Right. I can't tell you how many animals we had to rescue during that market, because people, didn't have a choice. Right. And then after that, I decided to become a continuing education instructor. So I actually set up a school. I wrote a 2-day designation course around selling bank loans. I missed the window a little bit. I probably should have done it earlier on. Of course, the REO market was kind of a short window anyways. But, I was a certified instructor for years, and I had the DISC, I'm very passionate about the DISC personality assessment. I had that approved as a class. So just kind of, evolving. And then, a couple of years ago, Nate started coaching with Workman. Of course, we've known Verl for 20 years. He used to come to our office and speak. And, when he reached out to Nate, it made sense for Nate to do that. And then Nate's like, you got to come be a coach with these guys. So that's how I ended up working with Workman.
Amazing. So now the evolution as a coach and an author, like, walk us through kind of that, because obviously the sacrifice is going to have to be, like, if you're going to coach, the sacrifice of time is going to be like pulled away from from
Sure.
actively trading. So how do you find the balance? What are the challenges with kind of maintaining both going on at the same time?
Probably the challenge for me is all the things that I coach around doing with your database. Like if I do that for my database, I'm going to get super busy selling real estate. Right.
Yeah.
So that's where I try to balance it. Like if I do this stuff, what's that look like? I just have to be really protective of my time, and learn to say no when you need to say no, right? And set healthy boundaries. In the chapter called The Magic Pill, we talk a lot about being intentional. Earl calls it the perfect week. We've changed the title to the intentional week because the word perfect is a bit of a stumbling block for a lot of people, because if you're like me, you're a control freak and nothing's ever perfect, right? And so it's a big stumbling block for people to implement that. So, but yet if you say I'm going to intend to do something, a lot different meat, so different. Big picture, ultimately write another book could be something I'd love to do, and, get this in the hands of as many realtors as I can. We're thinking about actually having it translated into Spanish.
Wow.
So that we can open up the Spanish market. So you get outside the United States, it's a lot different, right? Even coaching clients in Canada, I had a gal I coached in Guam, completely different. The markets are just different. The training's different, the tools, systems, all of that. And so that's something on the horizon that we're going to try to do, is get this open in different markets. The principles we teach are, again, it's not rocket science. These are
universal.
Yeah, it's universal. Doesn't matter where you are, right? Work your top 50, have your schedule, do your marketing. None of it's super complicated. I think we want to make it complicated to justify the paycheck.
I like that.
I think about it. So somebody who I don't have a college degree, right? Barely made it out of high school, enrolled in college and dropped out all on the same day. And you get into a business where you're making, as much money as you want. Some people can't emotionally even wrap their brains around that. So we want to make it complicated to justify it.
That's awesome.
Interesting. So I want to talk a little bit about the book that I have with me. I've been reading it. And yeah, there's just so many good nuggets. And it's funny as I'm reading through it, like I feel like I'm listening to you tell me these things, like when you know someone that writes a book, you're like, God, I'm like reading it in your voice. Like, why aren't you, whatever it may be, why aren't you adhering to your, intentional week, blah, 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 whatever. So, I've been digging through it. I really like it. I think that it has so many tactical things in here. I think that, all of the stuff that you just said, it's all, just those simple things that you need to do consistently, and the business will come. So I guess, walk us through a little bit of how, like, the process of, like, you guys being like, okay, we're going to write this down. We're going to do a book. We're going to, because clearly you and Nate have known each other for a very long time. You both speak a lot, train a lot, coach a lot, all of the things. Like what was the thought process in getting to where this is on paper and published?
Yeah, I kind of drug him along kicking and screaming. If we're So for me, it was something, Nate's been doing this 30 years. He's a broker owner. We have 3 offices. He's an intricate part of the RE/MAX, the RE/MAX brand, the company. So for me, part of my vision for him and my goal with him is to memorialize his story. He's a pioneer in this industry. And if you read just the chapter about him, you'll be blown away at the things that he was doing before they were even a thing, before they were ever, doing mega open houses, before there was even the word mega open house. Right. And so to get to document his story was super cool for me, to be able to do that, but memorialize it, right? The history of that. And then also just, when you go and you do all these things, right? He sells, he's one of the first agents to sell 100 homes. Well, then what's next, right? You do 679 homes. Like, that's mind blowing, right? And so what are your milestones that you keep achieving? And so writing a book and documenting for me, that was something that I think was really critical for both our careers, right? And so it's an achievement that not everybody does. It's hard work. It took us over 4 years to write this book.
Wow.
But we were doing some coaching with Viral Marketing. I don't know if you guys know who Viral is. Love Frank over there. And they were teaching us to do business workshops. So we started doing these 3-hour workshops where we basically just open our business up and say, hey guys, these are the things that we've done. You want to start a team, you want to do this. So we started doing these 3-hour workshops. And one day I actually was talking to another coach and said something along that. She's like, well, there's your book. She's like, just record your 3-hour workshop and write your book. So I was like, okay. So we did that. And then, then of course it just evolved from there. So, and it didn't get real until we reached out to headquarters, because, we are very blessed that Verl Workman contributed the foreword, and then Dave Liniger wrote the introduction, who is the chairman and co-founder of Remax, as well as Adam Contos, who's the CEO, all contributed. So it didn't get real until we actually sent the manuscripts out. Nate's like, oh my gosh, this is really happening. So so it was just sort of, again, an evolution and a part of what happens with your career. We worked for a different brokerage, and at some point we wanted something different. So you go out and you open your own brokerage, right? And as you evolve as a person, your goals change, your aspirations change. What you thought, Nate talks about his Roger Bannister moment. He'd never thought nobody was selling 100 homes in the Phoenix market. He goes to the very first CRS convention ever and sees people on the stage selling 100 homes. He's like, well, I want to do that, right? And so, and Katie, you've heard me say this before in coaching, is we base our future success on what we've done in the past. And the problem with that is that that's very limiting, right? It's very limiting in the thought of what is possible. Could you have your Roger Bannister moments? You know what I mean? And then up until he had done that, nobody ran as fast as that guy, right? And so I think, you have to keep evolving and keep growing and stretching, and thinking about what's next, right? Because it changes. Your goals when you were a teenager are completely different, or even in your early 20s are different than your goals at being in your 40s.
In the book, and this is a really tough question to ask, like anyone who's ever published a book, what's one or two things that you just hope that agents will execute on? Like, we finished reading the book. Obviously, it can't be every single thing tomorrow, but what's the one or two like quintessential nuggets that I close the book and then I'm going to start to execute? Like, what is that at the core of the book? Like, what are you trying to get at?
So there's probably more than two, but the two that really stand out to me is action, right? Take action. I've given you literally in the lead like a lead gen, like a badass chapter. You get to the end, there's literally go do this every single month, right? There's marketing ideas. You don't have to think about what to do. We've given you ideas of, okay, it's September, go do this, right? So action, create your marketing plan, get that done. And then I would say, if you can afford a coach, go hire a coach. If you can't afford a coach right now and you're getting started, get in a peer-to-peer mentor group, right? Masterminding has been around since Napoleon Hill, right? And so, that stuff is very powerful. If you think about those guys way back then, right? And we talk about Pat Hyben and David Osborne and some of those guys that were masterminding way back in the day. And those guys are like, seriously, if you don't know who they are, Google them, because they're amazing men who have contributed to this industry, and they're very, very successful. And the thing about them is they took masterminding very serious. So if you can't afford a coach, there's all kinds of different coaching platforms out there. There's group coaching. Reach out to me if you want to talk about Workman coaching, but there's lots of different options out there. And if you can't at least do that, then find somebody that will mentor you, somebody that will mastermind with you. But they've got to be somebody who are going to actually be honest with you and hold your feet to the fire, right? It's not going to do you any good to get around the water cooler and talk about the low inventory and this and that. And, at the end of the day, what are you doing to go out and get your slice of the pie, and who's going to help you hold yourself accountable?
Who would you identify as being, oh, sorry, go ahead, Katie.
I was say one of the things that I liked, that at the end of the book, you guys kind of addressed the pandemic and everything that's happened over the past, year plus time. And one of the things that I really liked was that the future of real estate always comes back to one thing, and that's mindset. Mindset is everything, whether the market is good or bad, whether there is low inventory, too much inventory, a pandemic, or an election year. Mindset is what gets us through the challenges and what creates new opportunities. I liked that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's true. When I had one of my best years ever when the market was crashing, and because I set my mind to it. My perception's my reality. And, I had one of my best years when literally the sky was falling and we were losing amazing people that were going bankrupt. And, so mindset is everything, it's what gets you out of bed every day. Right. And being clear on your why and getting up, because this business, it's got a low bar of entry, right. But it's got a real high turnover rate, high fail rates. And there's a reason for that. It's not for the faint of heart. It's a wonderful industry. In my mind, the next best job is being a rock star, right? But it's not for the faint of heart. You got to work. You got to get in. You got to hustle, and you got to do the right things at a high level of consistency. Which, Katie, do you mind if I talk about the journal real quick? I know we're probably wrapping up.
Yeah, totally.
So as we were writing the book, in Nate's famous words, he always says, "Wouldn't it be nice if we had?" So
how many times have you heard that over the
many,
the past 20
many,
years?
yeah, many. So what we decided was we were going to write a companion book. And so with the 8 steps that we talk about in the book, we actually then created a journal that is 681 pages. That is literally a whole year worth of tracking. So it's your business plan, it's your marketing plan, it's chock full of all kinds of marketing tips and ideas, and then it's your day-to-day tracking throughout every day for 365 days.
Wow.
To track your business. So it's being very intentional of, who did you talk to? What are your appointments? Did you eat right? Did you drink enough water? Right? What are you doing to your wins and your gratitude? So it's very, I feel like it really encompasses everything. Like, who's your top 50 you're going to contact today? There's nothing on the market like this for realtors. I did extensive research. There's nothing like it for real. I mean, there's journals out there, right? And there's great journals out there, but this is specifically for the real estate industry. The budget that's in here is specific for a realtor. We talk about your pillars of income. We talk about your marketing ideas. Everything is in here that encompasses. So the goal is this. I mean, it's a beast, right? But the goal is this would be your go-to for the whole year. So that was kind of birthed out of writing the book, right? Is that, okay, we want you to take action. Well, here's a tool that you can go take action with.
How many pounds is that?
I should look. It's on my Amazon account. I should look and see how many pounds. But it's a beast. It's 681 pages.
It's also good for one of the things you said was like working out and doing things like that. Like you could just hold that and walk around the house with it as you're making your calls.
Yeah, do a couple of curls while you're prospecting.
Yeah, do some curls.
Yeah, exactly. So
no, that's awesome, and that's something that like I've always. I've kind of gone to paperless now, but before I always had like a little book, right? But it wasn't really real estate related. So I would be writing in the margins things to follow up on or things like that. So it's great to have everything in one place.
There's a note section too, Katie. So you don't have to write in the margins. There's a part for that, and so, and I agree, right? We went from paper journals. I was a paper person for years, right? The old Stephen Covey, calendar thing. And then we got a BlackBerry, right? And I'm really dating myself now. And so those paper journals went away, right? But now there's scientific proof that writing things down on paper is a different experience than even typing on a computer. So there's just a really different, I forget the word that they use, but there's scientific proof. There's a word that they have that, shows that if you write it out, it's a different vibe. So and then of course you can have fun with different colored pens and all sorts of things like that. Which for my high eyes, you need that.
Say, your eye is showing, Sarah.
Yeah, your high eyes need that. So,
out of curiosity, if you say that like you want to write another book, would it be real estate related? Would it go deeper? Do you have anything in mind?
I probably would maybe something around coaching people. And, what I've experienced, what I've learned, and kind of my best coaching stories, maybe. I haven't really thought about it. So that's something I probably need to start noodling on. So
amazing.
One tip I will say, if you do decide to write a book, get yourself a good editor because they are worth their weight in gold. So
Sarah, can I ask, we touched a little bit about, upon mindset and the why. And I find that to be not just a struggle for real estate agents, but just human beings in general. Like, how do you help someone to clearly define or identify their why? Because I'm going to say most of the times I speak with people and they talk to me about their why, it's actually that's not their why at all. Like they have a very difficult time identifying the why. Like, how do you coach people? How do you guide people in really determining their why?
That's a loaded question. So many people are just walking around in meat suits, right? Just clocking in, clocking out. They're miserable, right? They're just in these life-sucking jobs and they have no idea what their why is. I wish I had an exact answer for you. It's kind of a process in coaching and peeling back the layers. I know it's going to sound really awful, but if I can make you cry on a coaching call, I'm in, right? You're going to tell me your dark, deep secrets, right? And so I think it's a process of peeling back the layers, right, of the onion and really getting to the root of it and really helping them to understand. When someone says to me, well, I want to pay for college for my kids, that's a fantastic why, but it's not going to get you out of bed. And the reason being is it's not tangible, right? It's not, I can't see that right now, but the thought of you seeing your child graduate college, go off and have a wonderful career, have a family, do whatever, travel the world, whatever that child's goal is in life, and you helped fund that, that's what gets you out of bed. right? That feeling of that. So I think it's just kind of guiding through people to really get to the root of what it is. And to be honest, I think most realtors get into this job for the money.
Oh, 100%.
They do. But they feel bad saying that. They feel dirty saying that.
Yeah.
And I say own it, because here's the thing. There's no other, I can't say no other. Real estate is a business where you can make unlimited amount of money depending on how hard you want to work and what you want to do. And think about, look at the most wealthy people in the world. How did they get wealthy? Like them or not, how'd they get wealthy? Real estate of some form, whether it's selling, developing, any of that, right? And so it's because it's a primal need. It's shelter, right? We need this. And so I tell people all the time, if you get into it for the money, own it. Because here's the thing, when you make lots of money, you can do amazing things in the world.
Exactly.
Right? You can give back, you make a difference. Rich people are not bad, right? They're not greedy. That's how I grew up, right? Rich people are bad. They're greedy. They did something bad to get rich, And so, working through those, I find that, Steve, that's probably one of the more important things in coaching is to help people get their mindset right with money and have a healthy relationship with money. Because it's incongruent. You can't say, I want to make $1 million selling real estate, but think money is the root of all evil.
Yeah.
It's incongruent. Those two vibes can't exist in the same place and have success.
Steve, when you said I love that, I thought you were going to say I love money. I laughed so hard. I was like, man, that's, not untrue, but bold.
Isn't there a rap song about that? I love
money. Sarah, I got to ask, because you coached Katie for 2 years, did you make her cry?
I don't think I ever made you cry. I think there was one time you cried, but I don't think it was at me. So I think it was frustration was boiling over. So
I gotta ask.
I don't remember.
No. I don't shed tears very frequently, and I think
because I just want to know if you could cry.
There are tear ducts there. Sometimes my eyes water. They probably are watering today. A little bit.
She's a high D. I share that with her. We don't cry, so it takes a lot to get us to that point.
I think tears were shed maybe once.
Maybe once. Maybe we'll deny it if we have to, though.
Damn, this is being recorded though, so oh well.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys. So I don't know, you booked us for 30 minutes, so I'm assuming we're right on time there.
Yeah. Well, I've got Steve. Do you have any other questions that you want to ask?
No, I'm waiting for that very awesome question.
I've got the last question for you. We ask everyone. It stumps a lot of people.
Okay.
Right, so it is, if it was your last day on earth and you're getting ready to eat your last meal, what would it be?
Ooh, last meal.
It could be homemade. It could be at a restaurant. It could be whatever you want.
I'm going to have to throw down with some Mexican food because I'm in Arizona. So,
okay.
So probably something fried and delicious and covered and green sauce. So
I like it. A previous guest, was it last week? Was it last week that they were like, we would have a salad? I was like, oh, for your last meal. So I appreciate the fried food, like greasy.
Somebody said they'd have a salad as their last meal.
Yeah.
A really good healthy salad. And I was like, okay, let's just end the recording right now.
That's kind of boring. Yeah. And I'd probably get dessert too. So.
Oh yeah. No, you're going.
You and I, we need to hang out, Sarah. You and I'm coming down. We need to hang out.
Yeah, there's a great Mexican food place not too far from my house. It's fantastic. So I'm very spoiled here because Mexican food in Arizona is not the same anywhere else. So
wow, amazing. Well, Sarah, we just wanted to say thank you so much for sharing your time with us. We know how incredibly busy you are. Thank you pretty much for this epic coaching session, because that's what I feel this was the past half an hour. You know what? Congratulations on your incredible book. Katie, do you want to hold it up again for people?
I do want to hold it up again.
Do you mind? Do a couple of curls while you're at it.
Well, this is the little one, so
Yeah, and so if you don't have the book, please make sure that you go check it out. There's some incredible nuggets of information. Sarah, for those people who don't know where to find you or follow you, share with us where people can go to learn more about you.
So we have the website, 8 ways to dominate any real estate market.com. You can also go right to Amazon, type that in and get it right from Amazon. But all my contact information is on the website as well.
Okay, awesome. Perfect. Well, Sarah, thank you so much again for your time. Look forward to hopefully meeting you in person one of these days soon. And we wish you much continued success for many, many years to come.
Thank you. Thank you guys so much. It was my pleasure being here. So I really appreciate it. So thank you.
Thanks, Sarah. Take care.
All right. Bye-bye.